Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Ward King, also known as the Stigma-Crusher. And here in this channel, we deal with issues of mental health and mental illness from my twin perspectives as a person with lived experience of bipolar 2 disorder, as well as a person with a PhD in experimental psychology. Sound like your jam? We would love to have you here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to be notified every week when I post, hit that notifications bell as well. Well, I guess there's nothing for it other than to start stigma crushing this week. So this week, I want to talk about closets, specifically hiding in them and or getting out of them. So do you remember, well, maybe it was more recently, but maybe it was back when you were a kid, hiding in a closet, playing hide and seek or whatever other game, what it felt like, what it was like in there? Maybe it smelled vaguely of mothballs. Maybe it was kind of drowsy and warm in there. Maybe it was dark and all you could see was out a little crack where the light came through. Maybe you felt almost invincible in there because you could see everybody else, but nobody even knew you were there. Maybe it felt a little dangerous and maybe possibly terrifying to know that if somebody did come and open that closet, you had nowhere left to hide, except maybe trying to get deeper and deeper into the closet. But we're not talking a Narnia-style closet here. We're just talking your regular old closet. So closets can be imbued with a lot of memories and a lot of experiences, and they can also be imbued with some of those experiences from our adulthood lives. I am a out and proud lesbian identified woman, and so as a function of that, I have had to come out of my closet before. But there's also another closet that I'd like to discuss in today's video, and I'm sure you can all imagine it's that mental health closet. So let's just get right into this. I can tell you about my first out of the closet experience. It was actually pretty rapid, which is surprising. I had grown up a good Catholic girl, good Catholic family, was, straight identified, or at least so I thought. I had no sexual partners, actually, and that was fine because I was attached to my work and really focused on my schooling and my work. And so that was the, good Catholic, straight and narrow girl that I was, until the day that I discovered very suddenly, but not inexplicably, that I wanted to kiss another girl. And then it became clear that it was not just me and one time, but that this was actually an identity. It was, as I say, it really did fill in a lot of blanks as soon as I started to think about what does this mean? What does this mean about me? What does it mean that I am? What does it mean that I can or cannot do? And kind of going through all those pieces, it was, like I say, it wasn't terribly surprising once it all came out. And you're kind of left going, I pretty much should have figured that out first. But nonetheless, I still found myself in a closet because I was head of the Catholic chaplaincy at the university where I was. I lived in the Catholic chaplaincy, subsidized housing. I worked for the Catholic chaplaincy. I took young people on the World Youth Day extravaganza. So, I had a lot invested in this. Those were things that involvement as a Catholic girl was not going to be possible if I came out of my closet and declared that my identity as a lesbian woman. And so I had to think carefully what I was going to do here. I stood to lose a lot, as I mentioned. I stood to lose my job and my housing, but also my friends, my mentors, my faith leaders, my faith traditions, just my life in general as it revolves so much around my Catholic chaplaincy. I stood to lose all of that and kind of for it to come crashing down really rather quickly. But I also had somewhere to go. So my identity, as I mentioned, a Catholic girl, a good girl, was my identity, and that's where I worked and studied and played and lived from. But there was another one to go to. There was a whole tradition, a whole culture, a whole vibe of being a lesbian. And I could very quickly jump from these friends to these friends. I could very quickly jump from these traditions to these traditions. I didn't have to lose everything. There was somewhere to go with this. And so when I did decide that it was more important for me to be outwardly who I felt inwardly, I did lose my housing. I did lose my friends. I did lose my job. I did lose all of that. But I moved on to something different, to something that was ready for me. And for me, that's what made that transition, which you would think would be such a life-altering transition, and it was, but it didn't take me long. And I think it's because I had somewhere to go. I was 23 years old when that happened, when I came out of that closet. I had already been living as a person with mental illness for 8 years at that point, and was firmly entrenched in my mental health closet. No one must know. Ever. Oh my goodness, the things that I thought I stood to lose from coming out as a person with a mental illness. I was studying as a PhD student in psychology. There's a lot of stigma in psychology, psychiatry, kind of care professions, nursing even. There's a lot of anti-mental health stigma, even more when I was younger, but still quite a lot today. And so there's a lot of distrust of mental illness within that within particular where I was working. I won't speak for the whole world, but where I was working in my department in psychology, there was a lot of stigma. And so to come out and say that I had a mental illness, that would have been academic disaster for me. There would have been such a lack of trust. And I can actually confirm that would have been / was the case when I ended up in hospital for my mental illness while I was a student there. I had folks that I worked with that found out, we will never speak of this again. And so it was absolutely guaranteed for me that would be something that I would stand to lose. And it was huge that I would stand to lose. I thought future employment, because it was all based on, they built one on the other. Future employment, I was going to stand to lose. I didn't think I'd have too many friends if they all found out that I had mental illness. And I didn't think that there would be too many lovers that would want to be with me if they knew. And so I stood to lose all of this. My family has a troubled relationship with issues of mental illness. And so I thought maybe that I would lose some of that as well. I very much thought that my medical care going forward could be compromised. I know every single time I had to disclose my mental illness to, let's say, an ER triage nurse, there's always raised eyebrows, different questions, shuffled papers. So there's a lot that you can stand to lose. Housing, possibly. For me, it wasn't the case, but there's a lot that you can stand to lose by coming out of the mental illness closet. And the thing was, so you have all these things you could lose, and you say, oh, but Jessica, this is going to be one of those stories where you say, yes, but there's a community where you can jump to, and there's an identity there for you, and there's people there that will support you. And that wasn't the case. That is maybe starting a little bit to become the case, hoping at this channel that will be the case. But it's a deficit identity. You're going from sane, which is what everybody assumes. You start out sane unless otherwise specified. And then if you are jumping to another identity, that identity is a deficit identity. That's the broken, shameful, fearful, horrible hated identity. That's the lost identity, deficit for sure. You don't want to jump from, all the way up here to all the way down here. Nobody does. And so when it even would come up, there was no question. And it was exhausting. Because then I do find a partner, and she's behind me on the mental health journey, and she's my wife now. But there was that. It took a great deal to tell her. But when I did, she was behind me. Thank God. But I got a job, and I got my PhD despite everything, and I got my job. And I had to go to psychiatrist appointments, to therapy appointments, to peer support group appointments, to just having mental health days when I wasn't feeling well, you name it, all of these things. And I was having to hide them, having to take them out of just my annual leave. I wasn't dare saying they were medical leave, so out of my annual leave, so I never really got any, free time. And I was having to make up things that I was doing. Oh, what did you do on your day off? Oh, well, wouldn't you guess? Went shopping. I was having to live this lie of, which is that high functioning lie. So for me, it's fortunately or unfortunately a lie I can live pretty easily, where I just look like I'm okay. I slap on the makeup and I smile like I'm doing now. And they say, oh, how are you today? And I say, oh, great. Yeah. Oh, how was your weekend? Wonderful. I spent the entire day Sunday face down in a pillow crying because I couldn't we went golfing. It was exhausting living this lie. I had recruited maybe a couple of friends that I could tell, that I could talk to, and my wife, and that was it. And despite how exhausting it was and how soul destroying it was to a certain extent, it was still far more risky to tell, to come out of that closet. And so I just hid in there in the back corner of the closet where you hopefully couldn't even see, even if you put your eyeball right up to the crack. I just stayed back there. And it wasn't good for me. But it seemed like the only option at the time. Then something changed. So something tipped the scales for me from it being way too risky, I stand to lose too much, to maybe. And I can tell you briefly about what happened. So I was working at a university, a small university, and it was one of those holidays, I don't remember the one, but I guess somewhere in the fall, when every student on campus, it's a small university, like I said, every student on campus piles into somebody's car and drives to somebody's mother's house to have somebody's mother's cooking. And there's nobody left on campus. And so we all came back after that, very happy and full. And we noticed the first day that there were those orange search and rescue helicopters flying around over the water that was next to the campus. And that wasn't that unusual because there was a training base nearby or something. So it happened sometimes. But then it became clear that they had lifted a student from the water and that student had not survived. And nobody even knew he'd been left behind. Nobody knew he'd been left over and that he was on campus alone that weekend. And it wasn't, he was part of the basketball team. He was the bouncer at the local pub. Everybody knew him. He was going to get his degree. He wasn't going to be a star A student, but he was going to get his degree. Everybody did know him. Maybe nobody was his best friend, but at the very least, they all knew of one another. And the students, because I was much younger then and had, funky angular hair and weird makeup and whatever. And the students felt safe to talk to me. And they started to open up at this point at how much pressure there is and how alone they sometimes feel and how they don't feel supported and how they don't feel like they can tell anyone or they can get any help and they don't know what to do. And I advised them as best I could until the next day when the leader of the college published a letter in which he said, out of respect for the family, no student shall discuss suicide. This student drowned, period. And I literally watched these young people's mouths snap shut. They got the message. They got the message loud and clear. It's shameful for this student to have died by suicide. Don't shame his family by saying otherwise. They got the message loud and clear. Stigma against mental health is what they were peddling. And I watched these students. It was too dangerous for them to say anything. It was too hard for them, too much risk for them to be able to come out and speak for themselves. And there I was. I had the wife, I had the house, I had the car, I had the, all the stuff. And I was successful. That, as far as anyone could tell, I was successful. And I was doing great in my job, and no one could find anything to fault me. And it was wonderful. And I said to myself from the back of my closet, I said, Jessica, if you can just manage to open this closet just a little, maybe you can make some kind of a difference. And that was like pit in the stomach moment, because I thought, yeah, but I still have that problem of it's way too risky. And here's my identity up here as a sane person. And here's the identity that's ready for me down here as a broken, shameful, horrible person with mental illness. And what am I jumping to? It came to me, though. It came to me. I'm jumping to my new identity as a person with lived experience of mental illness. Lived experience. That means I had experience. I had something valuable to contribute to this conversation. Not just my PhD and my ideas about psychology, but my person, my human, as a person with mental illness, had something positive to contribute that other people couldn't dismiss, because I was an expert. I was an expert in my own experience of mental illness. That's what I had to jump to. That had to be it. I could hold my head up high. I could say, yeah, and PhD, and wife, and house, and mental illness. I could strut out of my closet. Okay, now you're like, Jessica, too much, calm down. But this was me in the back of my closet, talking myself into flying open that closet, walking out. And I did. And the first thing I did was start a campaign at the college saying, where is your head? It was up your, a little bit of a provocative campaign. I went on to start research at the university on mental health stigma. I went on to actually get an award from the leader of the college that had originally written that scathing letter. I did come out of that closet, and I was so much the better for it. Now, it's not easy, and it's never easy, and I have had to come out of the closet again and again and again, because like I say, people assume you're sane. Assume you're sane unless otherwise specified. So I have to otherwise specify kind of all the time if I feel it's necessary. And it's not always safe, and it's not always necessary. And you may be in a position where you can't come out of that closet. And that's okay, because like I say, I'm in a position. What are they going to do to me? I've got the job, I've got the girl. What are they going to do to me? I'm in a position where now I'm just out of my closet altogether. I left the closet behind. It's long gone. But not everyone is, not everyone can be. And you may come out once and decide you never come out again. For me, it was worthwhile. I would definitely come out of my closet again and again and again. but I do invite you to take really good stock of where you're going from and where you're jumping to, and make sure that you are supported before you get there. No point jumping to a space rock where you realize that there are no, oxygen stores or hydrogen stores. There's no place to get water. Not a good jump. Make sure you're well supported before you get there. But if you ever have come out of your mental health closet, I'd love to hear about it down below. How'd it go for you? Where did you jump from and to? And do you continue to jump or no? I'd love to hear from you. If you're just thinking about it too, please post down below. I will always answer. All right, guys, that is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed our chat about coming out of the closet, and I look very much forward to speaking with you again next week. Take care. Bye.
StigmaCrusher.